This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the Invest in Willmar board meeting to order for Wednesday, November 18th, 2020. We'll start out with a little roll call. Members, Sawatsky.
Here.
Okay, sorry, I can look too. Ammon.
No.
Conal, I don't see him. Anderson.
Here.
Poe.
Here.
Councilmember Muskie.
Here.
Councilmember Nelson. And our Honorable Mayor Calvin.
Here.
So I think we have a quorum, then I think Tony's coming, but with myself, I've got 5. So, okay, any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? I get a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Who moved? I'll second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? That motion carries. Next up, motion to approve the minutes from the October 14th, 2020 meeting.
I'll move approval.
Got a motion to approve. Do I have a second on the meeting minutes from October 14th?
Swatsky, second.
Second, any discussion?
Yeah, just to spelling, Dr. Holmes' name, school superintendent, I believe there's no E at the end of home, just to be accurate on him.
Thank you. Mary's educational background kicks in. Appreciate that, Mary. Thank you. Anything else? Any discussion? Any other discussion? All in favor by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Item number 1 on the agenda. I have updates from the subcommittees. Looks to be the agenda here. So I guess we'll start out with Robbins Island and Chair Rachel Skretfit. Thank you for joining us. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks Matt, thanks committee, and Rob, feel free to chime in too. We had a meeting with the committee via Zoom about 2 weeks ago, and then Kurt and Rob and I recently met to kind of go over budget numbers to kind of present to you, just so you have a little bit more of this is still a rough idea on what we're doing for our next phase. I look at this now as kind of a 3-phase project, but can get done sooner versus later compared to other projects. Phase 1, the parking lots and the entrance road. Rob can maybe give a little update on that and what that looks like right now. Rob?
Well, Donuts was able to get the first tier or the first lift on completely around. So if you look at it, you can enter in, the parking lots are done, the curb is all done as well. And, back where the USA flag is at, that's all completed. So the first lift is in. They have pulled out for this winter now because of the frost. They're not going to be able to do a lot more work out there. So that's where we're at. And the lights are doing good now. And the football team was out there last Friday, so we anticipate them being ready to go.
Wonderful. So, so for us, that was our kind of phase 1 that was approved for our budget. Phase 2, what we're going to present, kind of talking with you today, is the things that didn't kind of get done in phase 1, which was shelters. But with our first phase getting budgeted, our bid out and budget came in really low, we have some extra money to spend. So we've been talking with the committee and with staff to see what's the best way to use those funds. And as you can see, if you can, the budget in front of you that Rob's got, we are looking at open shelters 1 and 2. One, which is right off our new parking lot that's closest to the beach, not too far away from the Four Seasons shelter. And then the open number 2 would be along the road where it would loop and come back, is the other shelter. Plus, we are looking at a renovation of Hilltop, a renovation of Gurry now, because we thought we'd be able to use that instead of destroy it and tear it down or try to sell it off. Along with street lights, some decorative lights, which I think is very beneficial with these new parking lots out there and a new entrance road. Trees, landscaping, flowers, and then you got to have a contingency. And if we, now that we've kind of expanded this phase 2 to be a little bit more than just shelters, we might be bringing back Jared with Bolton and Mink to kind of help us out on this. So there will be some design engineering project manager kind of costs there. So right now, we could have some leftover funds, but I would consider that a phase 2 of other things that we are still looking at for 2022, which might be something like more landscaping, extension of the paths, boardwalk that we've talked about, skating rink or a skating loop. There are ways for us to still put the extra funds back into the park, but we do have some rough numbers. We rather bid high than bid low right now when estimating and working with Ram Construction and Northland Rec right now, but we do need some new updated information from Northland Rec. We still have not received that, but I think we all know right now building costs have really skyrocketed. I don't know if that will change come spring when we send these things out for bid. It'll be just a scary thing to see if it's double what we think. But with our shelters, open shelter number 1 and even open shelter number 2, we're thinking similar sizes, which are 20 by 40, which I think would be very generous out there. And with open shelter number 1 by the lake having a nice 16-foot overhang with a serving counter, with electrical, and then having a storage building behind it. There's some open concepts right there that Rob is showing. Our team really liked it. I really liked the design of the building on the back with the red roof, and you can even get more decorative with it. We can find ways to spend this money. 2-tier roof like that, you could be putting stonework around the pillars. You can fancy it up how you want. I think our committee was very excited and shared their thoughts on what they would like it to see each shelter to look like. So we'll get down to the meat and potatoes of full design, I think maybe at the beginning of the new year when we can get better costs. Right there you can see with the PowerPoint, those stone at the base of those posts, and then more of an octagon or circle shape too. We are considering that as well. Maybe one shelter, the long one with the storage building, would be open shelter number 1 to look a little different, but still in unison with the roof lines. The octagon or circle could be over at shelter number 2. So that's where we're coming at right now. We do, like I said, have rough numbers, but things could drastically change here with how the world is turning for costs. But we just wanted to present to you and show you what we're looking at, and if you have any questions as we move forward with our committee. There's a sample of some of the decorative lights. I like the ones, the first one that you see, it's more decorative than more industrial. And then the other ones maybe are posts that you can put along walkways or by landscaping and parking lots too. So does anyone have, there are some pictures of some trees. A way that we can save money instead of us just going directly to find trees ourselves is to work within our city with Public Works. Every spring they plant trees and get a variety working with the nurseries around here. locally. So they order in the fall to plant in the spring, and we probably could save more than half what that budget says right there if we work with in-house with Public Works. So Rob, did I miss anything with that?
I think you covered it very well.
Okay.
Looks really good, Rachel. Thank you. My question is, you referenced 2022, so do you think that this will go beyond 2021? I'm just wondering, or do you think next year the project, everything will be in place?
Well, the reason why I say 2 more phases is because right now, phase 1, it all could depend. Maybe we won't have enough money left over to do maybe that phase 3 in 2022, which I said, if we have maybe $50,000 left, we can certainly use that to do an extension of paths, and skating rink, and the landscaping. But we just don't know for sure what these numbers are going to come in the spring with construction costs. It could be low again, that would surprise me, but they could be really high because lumber has been high. But we didn't put those in. Those are, we could say, backups, because those could be things that, again, that we could do in-house. Skating rink boards. You know, the only thing we couldn't is an amphitheater, but I think even a small amphitheater is more than $50,000. But with the budget that was on the first slide that he showed, we showed possibly with the things that we had projected, we might have $50,000 left over from our rough budget. And if we did, then we would spill into 2022 with more options.
Sounds good. Any other questions?
Julie, I have a question.
Go ahead, Julie.
Have you guys looked at the possibility of a fountain to help with the goose problem?
We have, and Kurt and I think city staff could probably answer that. They really don't feel that that would be a good use of our funds with the goose poop problem. It would probably be more of an extra maintenance cost for something like that. It was brought up, but I think it's not a wise use of our funds to solve that problem. Am I right on that, Rob?
I can't speak for Kurt with as far as what his thoughts are. I know that he goes out there with his gun and shoots the flares off, and they go away. But activity is probably the biggest thing that needs to happen out there. We noticed that when the Four Seasons shelter was being built, there was no geese out there at all. Once the trucks and everything moved out, in came the geese. So the more activity that we can get out there, especially on the beach area, the less of a chance that we're going to have the geese there.
Sounds good. Well, unless anybody has anything else, appreciate it. Looks fantastic. Super exciting. It's nice to see the activity out there. You guys are doing an awesome job, kind of setting the tone, and it's super exciting. A lot of positive comments. So thanks a lot, Rachel and Rob, and the make sure to thank your committees. I think I sent you guys an email. I hope you get a picture out there of your committee out there if you get a chance, and share that. So.
Sure. Hopefully maybe come spring will probably be the best time when we can get the parking lots kind of more finalized and done.
Sounds good. Thank you. Well, we'll move forward.
Okay,
thank you. And I don't see Tony or John, so let's go to Gretchen. Are you? I've got the event center. Are you okay with an update?
Yeah. Yep.
We'll skip Tony and John, and if they jump on, we'll get an update from them later. So go ahead.
Sure. So our committee has met a couple times here in the last month or so, which is exciting, like since our last Invest in Willmar meeting. We are to the point with LSE, our architect, to move into design and development. So what they asked of us was to kind of look through our design and give them more specifics of what we're looking for so that they can move forward with some of the smaller pieces. So I just wanted to kind of recap for you guys where where those things are at. So just to remind you, we are looking at just now the south end of the center, just not doing the connection piece. I know Rob updated that at the last meeting for you, that we're not going to be looking at that connection piece anymore. So we're really focusing strictly on the event center, and that's a 2-court event center. The sports that we want to make sure it covers are pickleball, volleyball, basketball, and tennis. Right now, we're still looking at numbers when it comes to tennis, because if we wanted to be able to have certain types of like higher end tennis tournaments and things, the ceiling has to be a certain height. It's the difference of a few feet between tennis and volleyball, but it's a massive difference in numbers. And so we're still waiting to hear the exact difference, but we don't feel there's a strong enough need for like this professional ceiling for tennis. And so we would likely keep it at the height for volleyball, which is the highest of the other sports. But that's what the court situation looks like. In design and development, obviously we get into different floors and all of that kind of stuff, so we're not quite there yet. We've talked about the different things we'd like for some bleachers. We want to make sure there's multiple options for expandable bleachers if the courts are separated versus if they're used from north to south for potentially larger events, smaller concerts, things like that. So we're making sure those get put in there. Obviously an air wall between the courts to separate. The catering and prep kitchen, I know we're going to be chatting with, is it Hagelin Catering, I think, and get just an idea of what they would suggest even for a good prep and catering kitchen, just what's needed in there, because it's not a full-on cooking kitchen. It's where someone like Hagelin would bring in catering, already made food, and just have warming stations and a large refrigerator and things like that. The playground space is part of that as well as the lobby area. It includes the 2 meeting rooms and of course the changing rooms and restrooms that are all on that end of the building. Let's see, what else can I tell you? We did kind of restructure. So all of that's our base bid, and all of that is getting numbers here for you. That's that $7,094,000. So aside from that, we have this alternates kind of contingency of about 1.15 million. And so our alternates, we've reordered them a bit on what we think is now best to do based on the fact that we're not looking at connecting to the bubble and we're not really focused on that north end right now. So the outdoor rink would be our first alternate. Second is that multi-purpose room. We originally had that labeled as a conference room, and we really want to change the language there. It's a multi-purpose room because it's not just meant for meeting or conference space. Those rooms are connected to the event center. We already have those planned. This is the multi-purpose room that would be near the entrance of the building. It would be used for check-in space for hockey tournaments, places for coaches to gather and just have a place to meet. It's not meant for breakouts and meetings and that type of thing. We wanted to make sure there was the separation there. So there's meeting rooms at the event center. This is the conference room that would be near the entrance. And so that would be our second alternate, which is around that 200,000. It does include a janitorial closet and a family restroom all within that area. If you remember, we at one point had those rec offices as part of that. That, of course, we've set aside. We mentioned we feel like that is not something our committee should be focused on. And so now that area, part of that area is this multi-purpose room, janitor closet, and family restroom. So that would be our second alternate. And then from there, our third alternate would be that north end of the Willmar locker rooms later on in the future. And then our fourth alternate is the visitor and Warhawk locker rooms. So that's kind of our updated list of alternates, just based on the most updated numbers that our architect has given us and what we feel would be the most beneficial once we've finished our base bid and we really have that in place, the most important piece of the event center. Then we feel like it would be a good use of money to move on to those other pieces. So we are hoping that once we get into this design and development quickly with LSC. They're already working on things that we could have our public meeting open house kind of in mid to late December, with the hope of moving forward with Invest in Willmar and Parks and Rec, Public Works, all of that in February, bring it to the council around March 1st, and then getting this out for bids. So that's kind of where we're at.
Sounds exciting. Anybody have any questions? I got a couple of questions, Gretchen. One would be, this is a comment. I would say that my opinion would be there won't be any professional or tournaments with a 2-court system with tennis. So if you can save some money, my opinion would be just having a floor that you could play tennis on, not being wood, is a huge, people are gonna be excited about that for pickleball and for tennis, would be my opinion. The other thing is, I had a question on, have they looked at like opening up like the sides or the doors, like with some large garage doors, like let's say on a cool fall? Is that at all an option that has been talked about, where you could open it up a little bit, air it out, like big garage doors on the sides of the building to kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so technically right now we do have something like that in place on the north end of the event center. I know it's hard to picture without something in front of you, but it would be leading out to in what's called the pre-function area. It's basically the hallway that would eventually lead out to the outdoor rink. If you cross over that, you would go into the courtyard. And so there is the ability to open up from the end of the event center courts through that hallway into the outdoor courtyard space, if that makes sense. So that would be there. The only other option would be the south end, which would lead out, of course, the parking lot. And right now we didn't have any plans for that because we really feel it would be more beneficial to have seating on that end of the court. So if we have events that want to use the whole north and the whole event center as one, you could seat people in bleacher stadiums, some type of seating on that south end. A stage would be on the north end, so that you could use it from north to south. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get the idea. It sounds like it's a good plan, so
Okay.
definitely. Anybody else have any questions on where we're at? So there's a chance you guys could look at going to construction in 2021. Is that kind of?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. That's our goal. That's
okay.
That's the trajectory right now.
Okay. No, that's good. Then I think just maybe just every month, just keep us posted so we can work with Brian and Steve on, again, the financing stuff. Most of us, that's not our area of expertise, but so we can keep them posted and on bonding and things like that. Because if we want to go to, that's the part I would say we just want to make sure Steve and Brian are up to date on where we're at. So if you're kind of looking at that, no, that's exciting. Very good. Anybody else have any questions?
I guess where maybe Rob, maybe you already know this, so you can inform our committee. But at what point does those conversations need to happen, Matt? Like, do we need to start having that now, or do we wait till after design and development? I'm not sure where that fits in.
I mean, I'm assuming maybe in the summer you're thinking construction, possibly. Is that what we're hoping on?
I guess I don't know how bids work, what the timeline looks like for that. If we're trying to get those starting in March or end of March,
okay.
Do you get those within a month? Do you get those? I don't know enough about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're fine. I guess it'll kind of probably play out. I don't know if anybody knows exactly timelines because it sounds like there's a few things, but just keep moving forward. Thanks for all the hard work. It's awesome, super exciting. It'll be great to get that facility up. So thanks for taking the time today, Gretchen. So
sure,
appreciate it. Okay, moving forward or moving to the next topic, I'll go to Swanson Field. And Mary, can you give us an update, please?
Our committee has not met since before July. And maybe Rob or Brian can give a little bit of an update. I really don't know where we're at with, we're over budget. We've been asking for some facts and figures, and we haven't met to make any decisions because we don't have the figures to be able to look at to make some cuts or gains or a plan. So I'll just hand it off to Rob or Brian.
Yeah, Matt, I'll take a stab at this. We've been having conversations with our construction managing firm, and given the difficulties that we faced when we went out for bid, some bids were over. We didn't receive bids for some of the projects. It just didn't really turn out real well. We're regrouping, going to be looking forward to a spring, early spring, maybe late winter bid. And at this present time, we're just trying to get all the paperwork in line so that we can get the numbers back to the subcommittee so that they can identify what projects are in, or what part of the project is in and what part of the projects are out based on revised construction numbers. We also have, I think, a little issue with the over design of the project. The project had a budget that came to light about 30 days ago that budget was blown past the 2 million mark, and actually there is some discussion. It's probably not at the 2.8 million mark, but it's because some were deducts, but it's probably closer to the $2.5 million. And that then creates the issue of how do we get it back down, what needs to get cut out. And as soon as Marcus Construction prepares the information that is available to help us make those decisions, we'll get that back to the subcommittee. And I won't say they can hack at it, but they're going to have to cut. And it's just simple as that. Some things are not going to happen, and they're going to have to decide what's the most highest priority of all their projects and work their way forward. And then we'll have a project that we can rebid somewhere between, January, February, March would be the hope.
So let me just ask a question, Brian. Let me try to simplify this. Is this one of those situations where it's overbid, and I don't want to get into the details because we're not at the subcommittee. It's overbid, and then it's too hard to know where to cut because the math doesn't really work. Is that what I'm reading here? Kind of.
Well, the original base bid was there, and that came in at like $2.1 million. So, there needs to be some cuts just to get to where we need to get to. But then there were the alternates that were added in there, and that's what gets it up to the 2.8 million. So none of the alternates can get in there except for the cuts. We had alternates that added to the project, and we had alternates that cut from the project. So the cuts are a given, the adds are probably absolutely no way, and we need to cut more. So the numbers, the real key is that Joe DeGroat from Marcus is trying to get the numbers so it makes sense, so we know what pieces cost what, so that they can go back to the committee and say, what do you want to do first, and this is what it costs. What do you want to add? This is what it costs. I know it's taking a long time, but that's the role of the construction manager to put that together. Both Rob and I have been in conversation with him. He is working on it. But aside from that, I think at the last meeting, I had mentioned that there's an issue with the architect and their fee. Because they're designing $2.8 million worth of stuff, their fee goes up also. So we're staff and the city attorney is working with the architect firm on that. And so that's not really a committee decision. That's something that we have to work out because the city is the is the person or is the entity that signed the contract, and we're the ones that have to deal with that. So I'm just alerting you to it. There's a couple of issues out there. One is the overall project cost. What does that mean to the actual project? We'll find that out. And then we also have just the architectural fee issue. So a lot of details, but it's coming down the pike.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Okay, is Julie on? Thank you for the update, and hopefully we can make some progress this fall. Is Julie on the call? I don't see. Oh, okay, I do see. Julie, do you have anything on the community center as the chair?
No. We're just kind of waiting to see what happens with the City Hall Community Center project. So we're on hold. We'll let Mr. Grammett speak.
Mr. Grammett.
Just as an update, we have had the Willmar 10 attorney and the city attorney have discussions on how the project, can get over any legal hurdles, and I think, it's perfectly fine that the city enters into a lease or a contract to have somebody construct the City Hall Community Center. But since we talked last time, and through the city council process of saying, go ahead and talk to the Willmar 10, it's changed a little bit. It was, maybe lease it for 3-4 years and then buy it. And I think the intent of the Willmar 10 is to build it and sell it. There's no lease involved anymore. So it really is just turning into a flat out construction project as compared to a lease to own sort of agreement. So now it's very similar to just, going, getting an architect, design it and constructing it and then owning it when you're done. There may be still some pluses, and our next step is to kind of work on getting better numbers so that we have something that we can at least compare to new construction, so that we can say, if we spent all the money on new construction, this is what it costs us. If we do existing building construction, this is what it would cost us, so that the council has something to compare to. So that's our next step. And that will by itself probably take a little bit of time to put numbers together.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Okay, Mary, did you have something though? Did you raise your hand or no?
Brian essentially answered it.
Okay, thank you. Audrey?
I was just going to ask Mr. Graham, that's the first I have heard that he would share that with the council, perhaps in an email, what was shared with us regarding that. Might be helpful for the council to hear that.
Yeah.
That they're not looking at leasing, it's just construction to own, Audrey?
Yeah, we've not had any kind of update since we voted on it. And so if there is information out there, I would appreciate it being shared with the council. And I understand that it pertains to tonight, but I think just in light of open communication, I would ask that it be shared with the council.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can do that. That just came in like 45 minutes ago in an email. And I'll get that out.
Thank you. Dennis?
And I don't know if anybody can answer this, but it seems like, with the exception of Robbins Island, everything is costing more than what we had planned. And I'm hearing that a lot of it is because of material costs that have gone up so dramatically in the last few months. The question in my mind is, might they go down as rapidly if a vaccine or some cure or something happens to COVID? Does it make sense for us to put any of these on hold and see if material cost goes down in 6 months or a year? And I don't know. It's just a question.
I guess my thought on that, it's a good question. And I think then the other thing that ties into that, Dennis, would be, I think, how are the bonding rates and costs? And maybe that's tied into that as well. Like if they're really good, the bonding rates, maybe that's a question for Steve. I don't know. So,
Well, I can mention that the estimated public sale interest rate for the 5 million for Swanson and Robbins Island is at, we don't know for sure until we sell them, but it's expected to be about 1.34. You don't get any better than that except 1.33. Those are the numbers we're talking about. So bonding is really good. The other part of the equation, I think, is you can have your design all set together, and you can basically look at what's going on in the bidding world. And if the bids are coming in super high, you hang on to them and you don't bid it. You wait 6 months, as Dennis is kind of saying, and see if things change. As I understand it, the reason, it's supply and demand. Cost of lumber is going up because employees can't go out and log, and then employees can't go to the mill and saw the logs up, and then you can't process it, and you can't dry it, and you can't ship it to your lumber yards. So it's not necessarily a direct aspect of COVID per se, other than everything slowed down, and until it picks back up, you're going to have this law of supply and demand on the cost of lumber. So yeah, a year from now, things could be totally different. Could be 6 months, but I think we need to be prepared, get our designs all put to rest and be ready to go. I think it was a good idea to have like alternates so that if bids come in high, you can deduct a few, or in the alternative, the bids come in low, you can add a few, to utilize your allocation of funds. But I would just say, let's, keep moving forward and make decisions as needed as we have to.
Okay,
Sounds
that
good.
makes
Thank-
sense. Thanks.
Thank you. Audrey.
I appreciate Dennis's comments with that, and I think that's the challenge, to figure out, the balance there. But, and I know this is my city council hat kind of thing, but to build something that you can't afford to operate, if we're looking at LGA cuts, those types of things, I think, the sales tax goes for a while, and I'd rather see us do it right when it's the right time to do it than to just march ahead and not be able to afford to be in there. So that's just me personally. Sorry.
Thank you, Audrey. Any other comments or questions on the community center topics? Okay, we'll move forward. Any update on the stormwater? And I know that's a whole different kind of situation. Does any projects going on? I guess, Brian, City Council, is there any members? Is there anything happening with storm? It's kind of a separate.
If there is, it's going to be, in the capital plan for next year. Nothing's popping off the top of my head, but there might be a $700,000 type of project in there. So nothing like $4 million for it kind of a thing. It's going to be small projects as we proceed probably every year to accomplish stormwater.
Thank you. Next item, I guess I don't see John or Tony as far as an update on the fields in that committee. I mean, I guess, Rob, do you have anything on just a general update on the fields? If you don't, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but is there anything information-wise?
I can add something, and it kind of piggybacks with Councilmember Nelson. The rec fields are in a little bit of a tight spot because it's about operations, and the dome that they want to pursue at building is going to be hugely an operational cost to the city. So they're into the point of, do they look at designing it and moving forward with that? But if the council doesn't approve to have the operations on it, they spent a lot of money on the design work on that. And so they're kind of in a rock and a hard spot with it. it's one of their priorities, but they also understand that if we're not going to get approved to operate it, they want to move on and do something else with their project. And it's going to be something that I'm going to talk to the Public Works Committee right after this. I wish that Tony or John would have been able to talk about it more, but it's a question that they would like to have answered about the operational cost. And that's a big thing, because it will cost a lot to put the infrastructure in for the dome. And then if we don't necessarily put the dome up for another 4 or 5 years, where's the value of it at? Because I mean, we're looking at over $500,000 to put what's called the grade beam in at this time. So they got some decisions to be made.
Go ahead, sorry.
Me? So I'm looking back at the emails that we had received from Conold, and I'm trying to get a hold of Tony. He must have had an emergency or something, but I'm not speaking for him. But I mean, I thought they were presenting something or they were showing something. Is this what, Rob, what you just said to us? Is that what they were going to say? It says discussion of rec fields and installation and operation of bubble. Our committee has requested that the city council look at this issue before we make plans with our architect. Is that essentially what you said?
Yeah, I made a PowerPoint up for them so they can have some of the numbers, and we got numbers from Yaden Domes and from Marcus about what the cost is for the dome, and it's up there. I mean, it's with it not being connected now with the event center, you know, on the north side, they're going to have another outbuilding out there. So like a lobby area. So that'll act as the lobby, the restroom area, and for people to get into the dome. Well, Marcus estimated that to be $420,000. And in some sense, that's on the light side, because we went and visited one at Park Center and it was over $1 million. So it can go from 200 up to $1.5 million if you wanted to. It depends on how elaborate you want to get it, but you almost need to have it in order to have a bathroom facility and a check-in system. And then you get into the grade beam, and there's different levels of a grade beam. And when I talk about grade beam, that's the infrastructure underneath the ground that the dome connects to. Okay, and you can have a surface mount, you can have a above ground, which is 6 inches to 12 inches to 18 inches. So just imagine that concrete beam going around a whole football field. That's a lot of linear foot of concrete that needs to be established. And so they do that grade beam above one for maintenance wise. So when you're removing snow, you're going to have to put your blade up against the dome per se, and you can move the snow away. Well, you kind of want that grade beam there so you don't pop the bubble. That's what we've learned. And there's just a lot of little things that have come up with the bubble that probably wasn't noticed at the beginning. So.
Well, and my question is, so what you're saying, basically, they don't want to do that infrastructure if they're not going to put the dome up, because otherwise you can't do that afterwards. Is it just cost too much to put in the infrastructure after it?
Well, I talked to the turf company, or the consultant, and it is doable, but you're ripping up turf, then you're messing around with the infrastructure again, and then you have to resew the turf up again. So if you're going to do it, this would be the time to do it, they would say, just because you're kind of backtracking with it.
So the committee is kind of looking for the council to decide their commitment to funding the operational cost for the dome.
I would say so.
Okay. Any questions? Audrey?
I sort of would hope that this committee would have some say in some of that. And I'm going to go back to the question of, what was proposed to the citizens to do with local option sales tax. And if we can't do it right now, then does that mean we wait till we can do it right? Or are you asking to change what you proposed because we can't afford the operations now? Or I mean, that's a hard question. That's a you know, kind of thing. I'll remain with it, and it's the same for the softball field. Wait and do it right. We got to find a way to do it right, or you know, that just jerry-rigging stuff isn't going to accomplish what this community needs for 15 to 20 years.
Thank you, Audrey. Brian.
Yeah, I think just want to point out that if the rec fields want to do everything that they had intended to do, they don't have enough money.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And so now they're cutting, and the question that they're posing is, like all the projects, if we have to cut, what's the most important thing that we want to keep, and then, you know, cut the least important things. And the dome is an important thing for them, but they know they don't have control over the operations of the dome. So they're asking the question. So I don't think we, you know, necessarily want to say, because we can't do this, we put a delay on everything, because you can still build the softball diamonds and you can still build the field. You may not have enough money, as stated earlier, to do everything and do lights and parking lot and all the things you wanted, but you can do a project. You just have to prioritize and say which ones are most important. And it's unfortunate that, you know, that the costs are so high, or it's unfortunate that we didn't get $100 million allocation of sales tax instead of $30 million. You know, it's unfortunate. So people have to make a decision, and ultimately it's tied back to the city council because it has to do with operations. Everybody can understand what a softball field is going to operate, what the costs are in the summer. You know, Rob knows what the numbers are, and Public Works is going to see it here in a few minutes, or discuss it in a few minutes. But how much money is it worth to have a dome? Is it worth $300,000 a year in operational costs? You know, if it was 30, everybody'd say, 30,000, I can live with that. But if it's 300, people are going to say, if we only get 100 in revenue, in use of the facility, that's 200,000 that has to go on to taxes. And that's what the council has to come up with and say, we're not ready to do that right now, or yeah, go ahead and do it. That's our highest priority. We don't need softball fields. We want the dome. And that's the direction the committee will go. So,
okay.
That makes sense?
That very good. Well said. Thank you. I want people to remember this too, and I'm not an economist, but I want you to remember this too, that if our community becomes more attractive, we have more amenities, we have things, we want people to want to live here. We've said we want to be a regional center, not a bedroom community. You have to invest in your community. That means somebody builds a house. Somebody builds a house, we get property tax on that. Somebody puts a business in because they think they can attract employees, because we got a lot of stuff here for young families. So we have to continue to just keep in mind, I'm not disagreeing with what Brian said or Audrey said, but I'm just saying, remember, I mean, we need to invest in our community if we want businesses and people to come and live here. So that being said, you have to be fiscally responsible. So I agree with everything that's been said, but just remember that we want people to come to Willmar and spend money and live here and work here and be here. So we need economic growth. And sometimes this was part about investing in our community as well. The only unfortunate thing, and then I'll stop here, is now we're in the middle of a historic pandemic. So it's really hard, and it's pressure on the city council and it's pressure on the school board, because we were going to have some conversation with the school board for getting involved here as well, but that's probably going to be a very tough conversation there as well. Anybody else have any questions? Dennis.
I just want everybody to know that twice you have gotten an invitation from me to go to a meeting. And I think Rachel, the same thing happened to Rachel. The last time I just changed the date in my calendar and poof. So I'm sorry that all of that happened. It's not intentional. I'll try to do better.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. Okay, so you got an update on the next item, the remaining item here. Anybody got a financial overview Brian, if I'm putting you on the spot, we can do this if
Nope.
you didn't get numbers.
I can do it. I can do it. Everybody should have been sent the recent sales tax receipts within the last 20 minutes. So you can check your email, look at it. But generally speaking, the month of October, our first payment came in at $165,000, which is pretty nice. Last month in September, it was $156,000. So our initial payment is higher. Total last month, it was $187. So if everything works together, we might be in the $195 area, which is, again, pretty nice. August, you would have seen this already, but we had a total of $241,000, which is getting close to that $250 number that was originally projected. But so it's been $241, $187, and now our first payment is $165. So we've had a total of roughly $2,061,000 that we've put into the savings account, and we've been paying, bills out of that. And now when we get the bond sale proceeds in January, thereabouts, then that money will fund, the Swanson architectural fees that we've been floating, and also the Robbins Island project that we've been floating. And so then that money will go back into the fund here that we've spent, and it'll be then spent on the other architectural fees. And then when we sell those bonds, then that'll come back and pay those back. So it's not the end of the world. Things are looking better than when it first started, that's for sure. Take a look at them if you have any questions. Finance has got this information coming up tomorrow night to review also. So looking good, just not as good as our projections were maybe 2 years ago.
Thank you. And just a reminder, everybody, if you want a copy of our priority list, I can send that to you that we have approved, City Council approved. I just want to make sure everybody keeps that in your back pocket. I mean, it's Robbins Island, Swanson, Fields, Event Center. That's kind of the order of getting their projects through, then getting to the funding department. So funding is approved for Robbins Island, obviously, in Swanson, and the next step would be to see if the council or the committee wants to come through and present specifically the fields and then get their funding on that. And then it would be the event center. And again, I don't know the math behind the revenue coming in, and the subcommittees will have to present if they want to try to move up their schedule or hold back, like Audrey said. I don't know. It would be something that I think that the chairs can certainly take to their meetings. So appreciate everybody's time. Anybody have anything else before we wrap up?
Are we meeting in December?
I've got us down for December 16th at 4 p.m. Just like to stay on that. Is that right? Is that this? We're on the 2nd. Let me take a look.
We're supposed to be the second week, so it should be December 9th.
Sorry. December 9th at 4 p.m. is what I have. If anybody had anything to address before that, just a reminder, email me, Mary, Janelle, if you have an agenda item, or if you have some reason to get together ahead of time. And Audrey.
You can ask Janelle to send that out right away so that the others, we don't have to try to do that on our calendar. Like Dennis has had issues, and I've done it myself too. And it has to do with changing a regular scheduled meeting. So if Janelle sends it out, it would be helpful.
Sounds good. I'll make a note to have her do that. And on that note, I guess I appreciate everybody's time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Swatsky. And Audrey seconded.
Second. We are adjourned.